Did you know that Eastern Kentucky University has a video gaming lab? Chances are that you didn't. It is located in the Stratton Building in room 403. The gaming lab is headed up by Dr. Kishonna Gray, who is also an assistant professor in the School of Justice Studies. She's an avid gamer, and she even wrote her dissertation about oppression experienced by women of color in Xbox Live, which is a virtual gaming community. She even taught a class called Gender and Gaming this semester. It focused on social and gender inequalities, racism, and other issues that plague the gaming community. We recently sat down with Dr. Gray to talk about the Gaming Lab's mission and to get her opinion on the state of the gaming community today. We are here with Dr. Gray, who is in charge of the Critical Gaming Lab, and she actually works over here in Stratton at in the criminology department. Dr. Gray, how did the idea for the gaming lab come to be?
It kind of happened a roundabout way. It's not like I had this urging dream of oh my gosh, I want a gaming lab. I always thought in my head that it would be cool to have one since I did gaming research, but I never thought it was feasible. At first I didn't know if we had space for it. I didn't know if there was money for it. So it actually happened that I guess essentially my contract was renegotiated, and this was something that I negotiated in.
Awesome.
I asked, it was offered to me and I accepted. So there was money provided, from the college. I guess, I don't know if it was what kind of funds it was or whatever, but there were funds that they made available to purchase the technology, and then the space was available. So that's how I got the lab.
That's awesome.
Within the lab, there are several posters of various comic book superheroes and other protagonists of other stories. On closer inspection, we noticed that each of these characters was a representative of some kind of minority. Black, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, and especially female protagonists are the main feature of these various posters. Why is that? See for yourself.
What do you hope to accomplish with this lab? Because I'm sure when you had to ask for money, they were like, what are you going to do with it?
Absolutely, yeah. Nobody's just going to give you money just to give
Right.
you money. They want to make sure that you're going to be doing something with the money. And that's one of those things where I'm still contemplating what the agenda for the lab is going to be. Of course I want to do research. Of course I want it to be a space that the students can take advantage of and come and play. But as far as that future vision, I'm still working on it. Because I think it's really, I have to be really cautious about how I frame my research. But I mean, my core purpose is intact, because I really want to just privilege female gamers. I want to privilege, gamers of color, because usually those are populations that are left out of mainstream kind of discussions in gaming, kind of left out of academic discussions in gaming. So I really want to make sure that I privilege the marginalized gamer. The kinds of research that I want to do, I want to identify the experiences of women, what women go through within gaming spaces, female game developers, the same for people of color that are in game development. Always examining representations within video games. Are we improving our imagery of women? Are we reducing the hypersexualization? Yeah. Are we reducing the stereotypical Coltrane kind of jive talking black characters? Are we doing better with those things? So I want to continue to examine those kinds of things as well. Something else that I do in the lab is I don't want to just be isolated into research. I don't want to just be up in the ivory tower just doing all this research. I want to make sure that I'm connected to the ground also. So I came up with the Gamers Manifesto. And essentially, GAMERS is an acronym that stands for Gamers at the Margins, Exploited but Resisting Simultaneously. And so I outline a whole listing of kinds of things that the gaming industry needs to do to improve its relations with marginalized women, people of color, immigrant populations. The gaming community is the same, new media and gaming studies. So I've kind of targeted these different groups that I want to say, hey, the things that you do is really cool, but we could do it better.
Definitely.
Because I'm not boycotting games. I still buy Grand Theft Auto. It's the best game
I do
ever.
too.
But I just think that there's so much more that they could do with the medium that they have.
I agree.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. What else?
You basically had all my questions already done. But what other kinds of research do you do besides women and people of color
Yeah.
in gaming. What other kinds of research do you plan to do here?
Absolutely. So right now I'm working on a book proposal. I mess up the title, but it's called Beyond the Box. Mediated
Sounds really good.
I know, right? It's cool, right? Don't steal it.
I won't.
Mediated multiplayer console environments. It's something like that. Basically, how we talk about console games is still like the kind of how we talked about it like back in like Sega days and back in like Super Nintendo days. There's so much more than just consoles now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
They
you
sold the Xbox One as like a full entertainment system.
absolutely, absolutely, and so that's what I want to examine. We haven't academia hasn't, of course, gaming industry has, but academia hasn't really updated the literature, if you will. I'm talking about like console gaming, and I don't even call people who purchase like Xbox Ones or Xbox any kind of console. They're not even gamers. I call them users of this technology because from my research, I found that a good portion of the people who even purchase these aren't gamers at all. They use them for Netflix or
Right,
Amazon.
I was about to say that sometimes they're very expensive Netflix
Absolutely.
machines.
Pretty much.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. You can order pizza. I remember there was the option I could order pizza like from Pizza Hut on the
I mean, that's
thing.
amazing. So,
Absolutely.
what a time we live in.
Absolutely. So these are multi-mediated environments. They really represent like the convergence of all these different type of media just coming together in an awesome, pretty little black box.
Right.
We've gone
exactly.
well beyond just gaming at this point.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that
but-
needs to be re-examined.
I agree. If you're a broke college student who loves video games, like many of us are, check out Dr. Gray's Critical Gaming Lab. You can play on the latest generation of gaming consoles completely free. And if you're interested in learning more about the vast and various inequalities in the gaming community, we encourage you to get involved. Follow Dr. Gray on Twitter, visit the Critical Gaming Lab's Facebook page, and read Dr. Gray's blog.